Welcome to part 4 of the B12 series of videos. So, as I mentioned in the part 1, 2, and 3, part 1 was about where B12 comes from, what it's made of, what makes it, and then went through how much you need of B12, how much a human needs, which is tiny amounts, but still need to have it. And I covered different ways of what else is needed in our bodies, which is intrinsic factor and acid, stomach acid that's made in our stomachs, and that's needed if you're ingesting the B12. And then I talked about other ways of getting B12 through bacteria that are in the air, bacteria that are in our bodies. And if you keep your bacteria healthy, then you're going to probably get B12 without even having to ingest any. So this video is going to be about analog versus active B12. And a lot of people think, and a lot of marketers and companies will tell you that spirulina, algae, and seaweeds like nori and things like that have B12 in them. And in fact, they have an analog B12 in them. So when you're using this analog B12 and they get digested into your body, they take up the receptors which should be taken up by real B12, and they're actually, so even if there is B12 in your food besides the analog B12, the analog B12 will block the real B12, and then unfortunately the analog doesn't behave like real B12, so your body is not going to get any B12 out of it, and it's just a problem. So and besides that, these products like algae and spirulina and nori and all the different types of seaweed, they're not really human foods. They're not meant for human consumption. They're found mostly in pretty dirty environments. There's a lot of chemicals in the environments that they're found in, and most people wouldn't grab a handful of pond scum and scoff it down because it's just disgusting. But when they go to the health food store and they'll just buy the canister of spirulina or whatever, and they think it's great, but it's really the same stuff. So stay away from that stuff. It's not a good idea. It's get your B12 by living a healthy lifestyle. Stay away from the toxic foods and keep the bacteria happy and alive, and you'll get B12 produced in your body without any issues. Another thing I wanted to mention is that B12 is stored in the liver. So if there was a time in your life when you were getting a lot of B12, like excess, and your liver, your body, well, if you're getting it by sort of natural sources, and as long as it's not like a huge amount, then your body will store it in the liver. And the liver could store up to as much as 5 or 6 years worth of vitamin B12. So in other words, had you had the opportunity for your liver to store the B12 and you stopped using, you were not able to get B12, let's say for some reason or another you're just eating conventional fruits and vegetables, and you've been drinking alcohol or taking medicine or something for up to 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years, you can go without any vitamin B12 whatsoever, provided you had stored it in your liver. Another thing is that if you do have any excess B12, whether it comes from your diet or the bacteria in your body or whatever, the excess will be recycled. The bile that comes out of your gallbladder and so on will have B12 in it, and your body will recycle that B12. It'll get stored again or get reused. So the amount of B12, we don't really need that much to start with, and the body's pretty efficient with it, and it stores what it finds is excess, and is also reuses it, recycles as much as it can. So B12, if you follow the healthy guidelines and reduce the amount of toxic foods, and especially if you can grow your own vegetables and use something in the fertilizer like B12, and you don't use any pesticides or anything on your vegetables, you should have no problem getting enough B12. And I think in the rare case you might need some kind of a supplement. The supplements are usually sold in health food stores, but I would never suggest that someone use an injectable B12, because that's just not the right way to do it. You should not bypass all the systems that our body has created over the millennia to avoid having things go directly into your bloodstream, and here you are just laughing at them, something that take millions of years to develop, and you're just laughing at them and say, hell with that, and I'm just going to pierce it right by the systems I have that protect me, and throw it right directly into my body. And not only that, you're putting not just B12. If you read the label of the injectable B12, they add acids, they add alcohol, they add some other times a preservative sometimes. It's just a hell of a mess, and it's not something I would suggest anybody do in a life or death situation. If you had like hours to live because you're deficient of B12 and the hospital or the doctor says you got to give him an injection or he's going to die, then in that situation definitely use an injection. But anything short of that, don't use injections. If you really have to, try some kind of a B12 supplement. Use the under your tongue or some kind of a tablet B12. That would be much more useful and much healthier. And then after you do go, if you find out that it was a problem with B12 and you feel a lot better, then find out why you needed to use the supplement. It could be a short-term thing. Maybe you were just eating too much conventional food. Maybe you were just eating a lot of garlic and onions, salt. It could be from hot, spicy food or something. So try to figure out what you were doing that caused your deficiency of B12 that's been killing off the bacteria in your body. And once you do figure that out, then you should never have to use a supplement again. So there you go, B12, last part. Bye-bye.